must tell you about a sentence that was in the first constitution of the kingdom. The first sentence of the first constitution in 1840, proclaimed by Kauikeauli Kamehameha III. It's one of the most beautiful sentences I've ever seen. Of course, it was in Hawaiian, but it translates into English this way. God has made of one blood all races of people to dwell upon this earth in unity and blessedness. One blood, not Hawaiians and everybody else. One blood. The laws of the kingdom were the same. Over 1,000 Asians became naturalized subjects of the kingdom with full voting rights and property rights equal to the natives. Many, many Caucasians became subjects of the kingdom. Same thing. Throughout the kingdom's history, the majority of cabinet ministers were Caucasian. Nearly all the department heads were Caucasian. About a quarter to a third of the members of the legislature, both appointed and elected, were Caucasian. And then I mentioned already about the Asians who became subjects of the kingdom with full rights, and the tens of thousands of Asians who poured their sweat equity into the plantations to become really, I think, entitled to equality. Certainly today they have that equality. Hawaiians say, no, that's not right.
If you look at people with suspicion, it's very difficult to have an open dialogue. You have to assume that people are going to accept and have an open mind. And if you find out for a fact, indeed, that they are closed, there's no use wasting time with them, if their minds are closed. But you've got to engage people in order to get allies. You've got to think that there's someone who has an open mind and that you can deal with rationally and get as an ally. That way, and that's the way to become change agents. You change other people who may not really know all about an issue that, as you see it. And so our mission is to get more friends to join us, not to make more enemies against us.
This is not a big boy stance. This is not me getting ready to dance. This is my straight jacket. This is how I've learned to fold my arms and hold myself in the open. You see, no one ever told me. You don't have to be in a closet to lie to yourself. You just have to stand up real straight and smile. I have never been afraid to be open. Always wore my pain and history on my sleeves, performed at a moment's notice, but sometimes fear doesn't make sense. It isn't logical. I grew up knowing both of my parents would be more than okay if I was gay. See, in my kitchen growing up, there were rainbow magnets on my mother's refrigerator, ancient free zone proclamations, but still to this day, I get choked up in faces the word bi, queer, or gay. There is something I am afraid of. Something I have tried so hard to run from. In September of 2008, I moved to California for 2 reasons subconsciously. I ran to the city of homosexuality, hoping she'd hold me in the open, but Stanford, she had a way of pushing me back to where I was used to crying. Everyone at Stanford knows you don't come here to boost your self-esteem, and you don't stay unless you can deal with the blows, and I couldn't go home. I ran straight from my bedroom closet to a closet-sized dorm room. I found comfort in being boxed in. You see, that way it's much harder to fall, and even when you do, hardly anyone ever notices. Stanford taught me to be invisible. So that even though every inch of my being screamed gay, like I was some rainbow, flagging down a lesbian cruise convention, I found a way to not exist for 3 months. But when California's Proposition 8 passed, making it illegal for people like me to be married, I was legally deemed a second-class citizen. I watched the vote count rise. The percentage gap between right and wrong widened while cheering Obama's win. I watched thousands of people lose. This is not the change I voted for. So hatred opened my dorm room door, and I found myself exposed, hurt, and angry. Wanting to be strong enough to wear my pain on my sleeves and speak, but this was all I had. A poetry book with similes I was too afraid to share. 2 arms that wouldn't fold. How would I teach a nation to love what it doesn't understand if I wasn't comfortable loving myself in front of them? So for the first time in my life, I realized that being gay, it's not about being different, it's about being the same. It's about loving yourself enough to fall in love with yourself and being more than okay with that. I'm 20 years old, and though I don't identify with my sexuality, I find it much easier falling in love with women, then men, and I will love whoever I love without ever trying to justify it again. I will not hide. Because in 2008, I moved to California for 2 reasons subconsciously. To find someone to love, and to find someone who could love me. And in 2009, for the first time in my life, I took off my jacket. Voluntarily wrapped my arms around my chest. I found exactly what I was looking for. Myself. I fell in love, and I finally stopped hiding it.
About Pohoʻokaina, which is the name of this place here. Pohoʻokaina was an ancient burial cave, and the greatest kings were buried in secret caves, you know, underneath. And Pohoʻokaina was one of those. And since the ancient kings were buried with their treasured possessions, this one came to be thought of as the treasure house of all the wonders that a king would have, including featherwork, woodwork, and things like that. And so there was a legend that grew up around Pohoʻokaina that it was a series of caves with openings in different parts of the island of Oahu. And so this cave, the cave that's under here, that is going all over the place, would have reached all edges of the island. And so Jim Bartell shares this. Jim used to be the curator of Washington Place. And then Puakea Nogelmeyer, who teaches Hawaiian language, also talks a little bit about Pohoʻokaina. The underneath, the caves are huge. They have waterfalls, streams, high chambers, low chambers, and it goes out all over the place on this island, and all of them are supposed to be different, have different burial chambers within. What's there today is, I don't know. So the main entry is here. There's another entry in Kalihi, there's one in Moanalua, and the highest chamber under Oahu is at Konahuanui, which is called Kaupoko Okahale, or the roof of the house. Not because it's the highest mountain in the Ko'olau Range, but because it's the highest chamber inside the cavern. Pohoʻokaina extends out to Kualoa, up to Kahuku Point, over to Waipahu. And the reason Waipahu is called Waipahu is because it was named for the water that burst forth. So much water that it was pounding, and it sounded like a drum. Pounding kapa in Kahuku. The story was about this woman pounding kapa in Kahuku who lost her kua, her beater, fell into the water and ended up in a cavern that came out in Waipahu. So it illustrates the connection of all of these underground places. There was also an entry at Keawa Ula at the far end of what is called Yokohama today, in Waianae. Also, Kaneana Cave is supposed to have been tied into Pohoʻokaina as well. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. Right now, well, some of the burials of the ali'i, the kings and queens that were here, got moved. And they all went up to Mauna Ala, except for the people on this list, to my knowledge. And what we wanted to do today is to honor them in the same way that we've honored the people who signed those Kue petitions, just by name. Somehow saying their names gives them life. And it would be, I think, an honor that is kind of long past. People don't remember, but they ought to remember. And so that's what we're going to do. And Moni will ask permission for us to enter. I would like us to stand in a circle around the burial mound. I'm going to read one name, pass it on to the next person. And when you say those names, call them. Call them. Don't whisper. Call them. Okay.